Chapter 14 Steelhooves.
The stables were never meant to save anybody.
Explosions. The world around me was rent apart by a cacophony of violent light and bombastic sound, shocking heat following a roar beyond the might of thunder. The twilight darkness was annihilated by two bright brilliance. Time slowed to a crawl, as if sensory overload was causing my own brain delay. Fire and shrapnel tore at me, sparks of pain igniting all over my body. The roar that filled the world died with a high-pitched whine as I lost my hearing. I was rooted in place, unable to make my body move. Blood splattered across my face as the pseudo-goddess standing in front of me tore apart, the parts of her body savagely flung in every direction. I felt myself thrown to the ground. Velvet Remedy covered me with her body, her shield forming around us with aching slowness. I could feel a sticky warmth as her blood seeped down, mixing with mine. Only belatedly did I realize that I was not the one being attacked. The second pseudo-goddess was turning, wide-eyed, as she brought up her own magical shield. But it was too late for her. The rapid-fire explosions that were killing Velvet Remedy and me just by proximity were ripping directly into the creature. The pseudo-goddess's shield rippled, fluctuated, and died before it could fully manifest. Then she too was consumed in a mutilating blaze. Time snapped back as the rain of explosions momentarily stopped. My vision was warped with after-images of the creatures, their obliterating bodies flash-burned into my sight. My ears still heard nothing but a distant, nauseating buzz, but now I could see the source of the massive attack, and I had seen this thing before. It was the poster from the recruitment center, come to life before us. A pony completely concealed by steel-gray armor, even its tail. It was a mighty relic from the war, a Steel Ranger. A bright lamp on its forehead spotlighted its target, and the huge gun on the right side of its monstrous battle saddle began to fire again. But the last pseudo-goddess had been given plenty of time to bring up her shield as her sisters were slaughtered, and the explosions, which I now saw were metal apples similar to those I had used on the dragon, only being fired at terrifying speed, detonated against the shield while she stood inside, looking cozy, unconcerned, and only mildly pissed. The flames illuminated her midnight blue coat and sickly green hair, and made her eyes sparkle like gateways to hell. Again, the Steel Ranger's grenade machine gun stopped, and now a large box on the left side of its battle saddle sprung open, unleashing two rockets which arrowed through the air towards the creature, leaving contrails of smoke in their wake. The pseudo-goddess merely lowered her head, a spark of light bursting from her horn. In an instant, the two rockets reversed course. The Steel Ranger tried to step back, but there was no time. The rockets impacted directly into our armored would-be savior, the explosion tossing the massive body back down the hill. The grass erupted in smoke and dirt and flame as the tumbling body bounced over several mines before coming to a stop, motionless and seemingly lifeless at the foot of the shack below. Velvet's weight bore down on me. We waited for the Steel Ranger to get up, and the world seemed to wait with us. When, after long moments it did not stir, the pseudo-goddess strode forward towards it. I could hear her laughter, even though my ears could hear nothing but that awful ringing. In the back of my mind, I realized I must have been right. Telepathy played a part in the pseudo-goddess's threat.
See now how the so-called mighty Alicorn hunter has fallen.
The majestic and cruel voice of the pseudo-goddess purred in my head.
The goddess will be most pleased.
The impact of bullets created twin sparks on the pseudo-goddess's shield. Limping and bloodied from the storm of fire and shrapnel, Calamity strode forward. I could see his mouth moving. Undoubtedly, he was saying something snide and witty. The pseudo-goddess, or Alicorn by her own title, turned and snorted derisively. Calamity shot again, just as futile in effect. I shrugged my haunches, trying to get Velvet Remedy to get off of me, but she did not. Her body was warm, dead weight. I realized her shield spell had dropped and felt a surge of panic. I heaved. rolling her off, and turned to find my beautiful companion unconscious, her hide flayed by shrapnel, bleeding excessively. With a flare of my horn, I opened one of her medical boxes and started pulling out what supplies we had left. My heart screamed at seeing how little it was. I may have screamed too, but I couldn't hear. I pulled open the other, hoping for more, but all that was left in the second medical box was her dress, a bottle of buck, and the party time mintles. The voice in my head roared. Velvet Remedy was counting on me. She'd die if I couldn't help her. I needed to be smarter right now. I needed to be better right now. I needed those mintles. The little memory orb rolled out and fell into the grass as I tore the tin of party time mintles from her saddlebox and floated it towards me. A craving hit me, and I had to force myself to take only one. Make them last. One would be... The world became so much brighter, clearer, cleaner. I was aware of each raindrop as it struck me. I was aware of each pain, each bleeding gash in my own body. My mind sped down pathways of thought. Once again, brilliant light burst all around us, this time carrying a choking stench of ozone as the alicorn summoned lightning from the thunderclouds and struck Calamity to the ground. I turned, trying to cry out, but I had no voice. Or I did, but could not hear it. Calamity shuddered, twitching on the ground. He was not dead, not even yet unconscious, but he was in no condition to fight. The alicorn didn't seem to care. A malicious smile broke over her features, cold and wicked, as motes of pinkish-purple light ignited around her head, growing and shaping into magical arrows. I tried to get to my hooves, but my legs wouldn't work. A wave of felling nausea dropped me. I knew I too was suffering from loss of blood, and the ringing in my ears was shredding my sense of balance. But I also knew that Calamity and Velvet were about to die. So might I, but I would die saving them. And in the sheer brilliance of mental-enhanced acumen, I knew just how to do it. My telekinesis did not fail me, even when my body did. I brought my sniper rifle to me as I simultaneously lifted the memory orb and floated it towards the alicorn, moving it so that it approached from her flank. I felt a pang of conscience risking something so precious to Velvet. The pseudo-goddess turned, catching the movement out of the corner of her eye. She reacted before she recognized it, expecting a grenade, focusing her magic against it to send it hurtling back at me. The memory orb glowed softly as the alicorn touched it with focused magic. Her eyes went wide, her shield dropping, and the forming cascade of magical arrows evaporating as the alicorn was lost inside the memory. Slipping into the targeting zen of Sats, I lined up the headshot and pulled the trigger.
No!
Velvet Remedy intoned harshly, her voice sounding distant and muffled through the buzzing in my ears. She floated the tin of party time mintles away from me before I had a chance to take yet another. I'd taken two already, one before killing the alicorn, and a second to stave off the massive depression that I knew would come when the first wore off. But I tried to come up with something that Velvet Remedy would buy. I was amazing now. I could talk anyone into anything. At least let me hold on to them. I might need them. And yet somehow, I couldn't convince the most beautiful mare in the wasteland to let me keep a tin full of medicine. I'd administered the last of the medical potions to Velvet Remedy. The magical liquid seemed to work achingly slowly at closing her wounds. Now she was left with just the healing bandages to aid Calamity and myself. We didn't have anywhere near enough. She was still very weak from the loss of blood and was having trouble standing. Calamity needed a medical brace to fix his leg. Velvet Remedy didn't want to risk a mending spell until it was properly set. More, he needed serious bed rest to recover from the lightning strike. There was one more. I had to wave Velvet Remedy back before I approached the unmoving armored figure crumpled against the shack below. Harnessing my levitation, I could pass over the minefield safely. Velvet Remedy could not. Between the alicorn's thought words and the label my pipbuck had spontaneously given the shack, it didn't take party time mental enhanced smarts to realize this had probably been Steelhooves, the great alicorn hunter, meaning there were more of those, possibly a lot more. The thought was frightening. Steelhooves had exterminated two of them with a combination of surprise and epic firepower. It was by wits and luck that I had killed the third before she slew us all. Last time I needed a boxcar. These creatures were not invincible, but they were powerful and very hard to kill. The metal stallion, or at least I was assuming stallion based on the form of the armor, had not moved since the battle. I crouched down next to the fallen ranger, several of my bandages shifting and coming undone as I did so, my wounds oozing blood. Up close, the armor was even more impressive. It had its own air filtration system, complete life support, even mechanized drug injection. The damage from the rockets was far less than it had any right to be. Still, the armor had caved in at the point of impact, gruesomely crushing the pony inside. I tried to find a way to remove the helmet. If there was one, it was well concealed, but I found a jack point that would allow my pip-buck to interface with the helmet's own arcane technology matrix. I pulled out a tool from my utility barding, already suspecting that the helmet included its own EFS and SATS equivalents, if not more. Whoever had designed the armor must have worked tail twined with tail alongside stable tech.
Don't do that.
The voice from inside the helmet was low, rumbling, exceptionally masculine. I jumped back, startled. There was some pony alive in there. Fueled by party-time confidence, I approached, trying to reassure him. I'm a certified stable tech pip-buck technician, I lied, but only a little. I'm sure I can help.
No, you can't.
The voice spoke, but the body still did not move. The helmet did not even turn to look at me.
My armor took a crippling hit. Everything is offline. Medical, self-repair. The entire spell matrix has crashed.
I sat back on my haunches, wincing as several sharp bolts of pain lashed up through my flanks. Can you?
Without magical power, I cannot even move. I will die here. I am, truly, already dead.
The low voice in the armor sounded resigned to the idea, and at peace with it.
But I took them with me, and, if I'm not mistaken, I saved the stable dweller. As a final act, it was a good one.